welcome to the Women in Construction panel discussion. It's so exciting to see all of these female students in the audience. We have about 50 students here from the construction trades, from CTECS, and from Goodwin Tech. So thank you so much for coming today. And we are also so fortunate to have this diverse panel of women from the construction industry in all stages of their careers. They're here to share their experiences in the field, which has historically been male-dominated, and answer any questions that you might have about entering into the construction field. So my name is Carrie Markey. I'm the Director of Communications at CTECS and also the Director of the very first Career Center, which all of you students will be getting information about soon. And I'm going to be the moderator of this discussion today. But before we get started, I want to introduce our Executive Director, Dr. Ellen Solich. She's going to say just a few words.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning to our honored guests. We are, as Carrie said, so thrilled that you are here this morning. And equally as exciting is the fact that we have a huge number of women in the trades from CTECS who are going to so benefit from just sharing your experiences, your inner strength, and what was it that made you decide to really pursue the trades, particularly in construction, because as we know, that is a non-traditional trade, as it says, for women. I don't know if we have any tradition anymore, women. I think we're blowing down those tradition doors, and I think we've decided that we can do anything we want to do if we set our minds to it, right? And that's why you're here today. These women are living that every single day. No one said it would be easy. It's full of challenges. It's full of figuring out how to declare our place in the workplace that is fully equal to everyone else that is in the workplace. And that's a part of, I'm sure, what our guests are going to share today. Last piece I wanted to share with you this morning as students, I had the privilege about a month and a half ago of attending a luncheon with the Women in Construction Trade group, and they are amazing. You walk in the room and the room is buzzing. There is energy, there is commitment, conviction, and everything that it takes to be a successful woman in the trades, particularly construction. You're gonna benefit from all that this morning. I sure did. I was inspired. Enough so that I contacted the organization and said, what can we do to further partner with you? So thank you so much, ladies, for being here this morning with us. You're going to be a huge, huge, huge resource for our women in the trades from CTECS, from Goodwin, and from CTECS. And soak it all in, ladies, because you're going to learn a lot in the next hour. So welcome. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Solich. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce each one of our panelists and give you a little bit of their bio. But first, just a little bit of housekeeping about today's event. This is going to be about an hour long, and we're hopeful that at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. If we don't have that time, each of our panelists has graciously offered to remain after the event. So if you have a question you'd like to ask them individually, they'll be here afterwards. So you can have a little meet and greet and ask your question. Of particular note, this panel discussion is being recorded so that we can share it with all of our students throughout the technical high schools. We'll also make it available on our YouTube channel and on our website. So just be aware that this is being recorded. And a big thank you to the CTECS digital media students who are making that happen. So a little round of applause for them. Okay, so without further ado, I encourage everyone to listen, learn from these experienced women before you, and let me start by introducing each one of them. So I'm going to go from left to right here. We have Zivin Drake, who serves as the Assistant Executive Director to the North Atlantic States Carpenters Training Fund. Prior to that, she was a Technical Coordinator of Recruitment and Retention and focused on the recruiting and retention efforts within North Atlantic State Carpenters Training Fund by delivering informational sessions, as well as conducting interviews for potential apprenticeship candidates. She's a member of the Pile Drivers and Divers Local 56, and a member of the Local 56 Executive Board, as well as a delegate to the North Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters. In addition to working as a part-time instructor for the North Atlantic States Carpenters Training Fund, Ziven previously worked as an assistant project manager, specializing in marine construction and deep foundation systems. Ziven also has spent time as an F-16 mechanic with the United States Air Force. She is an athlete, specifically into running, and loves global travel. So thank you for being here, Ziven. All right, next we have Kim Fortin. Kim is currently an organizer with the New England States Pipe Trades Association. Her job is to recruit members into local plumbing, pipe fitting, HVAC, and sprinkler fitters unions throughout Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire. As a member of the New England States Pipe Trades Association team, she travels throughout New England visiting job sites where non-union workers are performing plumbing, heating, HVACR, and sprinkler work, and educates them on the benefits of union membership. She is a medical gas installer certified, a certified welder, and is a holder of a heating and cooling journeyman S2 and plumber P1 license. Kim was part of Teach for America for 6 years and also United States Marine Corps second lieutenant. She's passionate about the labor movement and workers' rights and is currently working on hiking the Appalachian Trail. Cool. Very cool. Thanks for being here, Kim.
Thank you so much.
Right, next in line we have Barbara Konsberg. She's a recently retired Local 90 electrician journeywoman after working 23 years in the trade. Currently, she continues to instruct fifth-year apprentices for Union Local 90 and has instructed for the last 15 years. Barbara earned a bachelor's degree in natural resource conservation from the University of Connecticut and entered into a career as a horticulturalist. She was employed in the field for approximately 20 years when a life-changing event forced her to pursue a more lucrative line of work. At that time, the state of Connecticut, through the Permanent Commission on the Status of Women, was offering a foot in the door to women seeking jobs in the trade. At the age of 40, she opted for a career as an electrician. The greater part of her working career was from Yale University campus jobs. She also worked at many school installations throughout Connecticut, as well as substations, Millstone Nuclear Power Plant, solar installation projects, and many other industrial projects. In 2004, she was awarded Female Apprentice of the Year, as well as top student each year of her apprenticeship. She is currently working on the Electrical Alliance certification through the International Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee. Barbara spends most of her free time hiking and mountain biking with her border collie, and is an avid forager of wild foods and is crazy about gardening. Welcome, Barbara. And last but certainly not least, we have Gladys Williams. So Gladys feels she was born for construction work. She entered the industry as a member of the local 455 Laborers Union back in 1994. She has served as a union steward for the past 2 decades and has a total of 30 years of experience. At the start of her career, Gladys worked in a factory. Then in the early 1990s, her brother-in-law encouraged her to apply for a job with the city of New Haven. The city was actively seeking to hire more minority women for construction projects. She was immediately hired and sent to laborers' school. Afterwards, she was assigned to a large sewer installation project in New Haven. She says her first days on the job were nerve-wracking as a young Black woman in a male-dominated industry. However, Gladys won them over with her cheerful personality and quickly established herself as part of the team by seeking their guidance and closely paying attention to their knowledge. Currently, Gladys plays a crucial role in overseeing and advocating for workers' rights on the I-91, I-691 Meriden project. She had planned to retire after 30 years, but the support she's receiving from her current company, O&G Industries, has her planning to stay until the project is finished in 5 years.
Yes.
So thank you for being here, Gladys.
You're welcome.
All right, so we have a lot of experience in front of us here. We're going to dive right into the questions. So, besides what I've just read in your bio, I'm going to ask each one of you, could you tell me what inspired you to pursue a career in construction? And if there was any steps you took that would be worth sharing with students beyond what we talked about in your bio. So Ziven, let's start with you.
Sure. I began my career in construction because I was watching an episode of Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that show, but I'd already been to college. I have a 4-year degree. I was transitioning out of the military, and I was coming to the realization that there's going to be a lot of opportunity in construction and in the trades. My time in the military taught me that I like to work with my hands in fast-paced environments. I'm used to being the only girl in the room usually, grew up playing sports with guys when girls' teams weren't around. So the long and the short of it is Mike Rowe really highlighted for me the opportunities that were going to be available in the next 10, 20, 30 years or so. So I did a ton of research. I was living in Italy at the time, getting ready to separate and come back to the United States stateside. Did a ton of research about all the trades that I possibly could. I'm pretty hardcore. I'm an intense human being, so I found commercial diving, and I was like, well, that seems impossible. Let's do it. So I found a commercial dive school, and almost 10 years later, here I am. I love the work that I do, but it was really just sitting down and having an open conversation with myself and really thinking about what I want to do for the next however many years of my life. But it was certainly inspired by Mike Rowe and him highlighting how cool it is to be a tradesperson, the money that is involved in becoming a tradesperson, and really just the opportunity for a great career into retirement.
What about you, Kim?
Very similar to Zivin. I got into the trades a little bit older. I was 30 when I decided that I wanted to become a tradeswoman. I had done a lot of different careers. I'd been in the military, I had taught, I had tried office work, and I just had that serious conversation with myself. And what am I going to do for the next 30 years? I'm climbing the walls in a classroom. I can't sit in an office all day. I just figured it out that I wanted to be in a trade. I was familiar with the unions. My grandfather was a union machinist. My father was a union operator. So I knew how unions worked. I was a little bit hesitant. Do I want to be around these guys all day? I have a college education. I have experience. I'm a little older. You know what? I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to do it. And I was interested in welding. Anybody that's in the welding program, once you get that start, it gets addictive. And every opportunity that was put in front of me, I just grabbed it. Every license I could get, every class I could take, I just took it, and I haven't looked back since. So it's been great.
Barbara.
Well, what inspired me was I had been a horticulturalist and working at local nurseries for 20 years. Ended up going through a divorce that would not have allowed me to keep my property, my house. I didn't want to lose it. As a horticulturalist, I worked in the propagation department. I did a lot of plumbing. I did a lot of electrical without even knowing what I was doing. So I needed to be able to support myself and, a modest lifestyle. And I was informed of the trades by a friend of mine who was going into that same program I went into, the Permanent Commission on the Status of Women. And basically they gave you an overview of all the trades, and you kind of directed yourself to what you thought you could handle, what you thought you could do. And they recruited you right out of that program, and I decided, I've done a lot of plumbing, I've done a lot of electrical. I didn't want to do toilets, So electrical just, I had a knack for it anyway, and I signed up for the union, and they accepted me. And I was 40 at the time, and pretty much if somebody tells me you can't do something, I'm going to do it. So I excelled in the schoolwork. A certain level of maturity at 40 that you're not going to have at 20. But I was really driven to get my electrical license and be an electrician. And had 23 years, I never looked back. I enjoyed what I did for the union, and I'm still in contact with the union and trying to teach people such as yourself how to get through it, and you can do it. And it is rewarding, and it's also challenging in that you're learning something new every day. Sometimes you have a really tedious task, but especially with electricity, there's all kinds of innovations, there's all kinds of things you can branch out to. You don't have to just be slinging up lights or slinging wire. There's a lot of different opportunities in that trade itself. So that's what inspired me.
Great. And Gladys, what inspired you?
What inspired me? I was going through almost like you, Barb. Going through a divorce. I was 24 years old, had 2 kids. When I got divorced, I wasn't making enough money because I was working in a factory, and it wasn't enough money. I like nice things. I said, I got to change this work. I got to change this work ethic. I can't do this. My mother was like, well, figure it out. I figured it out. My brother-in-law was like, no, you're going to go in construction. You're going to make a lot of money. I know the laborer BA for local 455 laborers. I said, okay, let's try. Let's do this. Went to the office, did the paperwork. Next day, I was in the school in Pomfret on a Sunday at 1 o'clock. Stayed there for a week. Following Monday, I was working. Been working ever since, making good money. It inspired me to more challenges. You know, when I first started, the guys were like, oh, she's not gonna hang, she's not gonna do this. And I heard one of the guys say that. I said, what'd you say? Oh, I didn't say anything. I said, no, I heard what you said. I said, no, you're gonna teach me how to do this. You're gonna show me. He's like, you know what? You're gonna make it. I said, I know I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna get this money. That's what I want. I want my nice things. I want my new car, my house, everything. And from there, let me tell you, it's been excellent ever since. I've been in almost, 30 years. It'll be June 30th, be 30 years that I've been in. And been kids, college, everything paid for, everything wonderful. Life was good.
So common thread here, you're all very driven.
Driven.
There's definitely self-reflection in you choosing to pursue this career. And it sounds like maybe it's a little lucrative,
Yes.
some of your cases.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to ask you, you're all well into your career now, but many of these students are going to be entering the career, and maybe this year, maybe next year. So I'm going to ask you to think back to when you first started. What was the day-to-day life like in your career, that first year when you were first on the job? What did it look like day to day? Gladys, let's start with you. We'll go backwards this time.
Day to day was just, when I first started, the first day was like, oh boy. I had to mix cement in a wheelbarrow, 90-pound bags. I was like, okay, because I was already a bodybuilder and working out, so I already had the strength for it. But to do it all 8 hours, I was like, what the heck did I get myself into? Next day, same thing. They were just testing me. Next day, the same thing. I said, okay, you're going to give me a masonry truck. They got me a masonry truck. I just sat there and mixing my cement, piece of cake. They're like, oh, it's easy now, huh? I was like, yeah, it is. Following week after that, they put me on sewer pipe. Oh, it was the worst day of my life. Oh, did I see some poop fly by? Oh, you got to go in there and change that. I'm like, I do? I really have to? One of the older school journeymen came and said, listen, I'm going to show you. Showed me everything about sewer pipe, drainage, everything. And I said it was like the best after that. I was so happy. So now I got it. Piece of cake. And I've been enthused ever since. I've been doing it ever since.
It's a little tough at first,
It
but
was
you
tough at
advocated for
first.
yourself.
Oh, that sewer pipe was tough at first.
Yeah.
That's what got me. I was like, oh boy.
Yeah, but there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Light is definitely at the end of the tunnel.
All right. Barbara, what about you? When as a 40-year-old electrician, what did those first few days look like?
As Gladys had mentioned earlier, it was nerve-wracking. I had no idea what to expect. I have always worked in sort of a male-dominated career anyway, so I wasn't scared about that part. I was a little scared about how I was going to be treated, how I was going to be taken. I was green as green can be. I didn't know a 3/4 coupler from a 1-inch coupler. I mean, just, you really had a overwhelmed sensation about all the things that it could possibly entail. But they, at least union-wise, they started us out, especially your first day, just getting to know what all the material is, getting to know what the project is like, and as an apprentice, because you go through a 5-year program on the job, you find someone to take you under your wing and mentor you, and you can kind of get a feel at first for who's going to treat you like a human being and who isn't. and kind of hone in on someone who is willing to teach you the trade. And you just get more and more confident as you go along, and you get challenged with different activities, and pipe bending, and just simple little putting in outlets or anything like that. So at first you're like, I don't know my way, but look for a mentor, look for someone who is gonna teach you. And then when you get to be a journey person, you're gonna be the one teaching the apprentices coming up. So that's a good aspect of remembering what it was like when you first got in.
So there's a good lesson here that maybe everyone's a little nervous to begin with, not quite sure what they're doing. Kim, what about you? What's the day-to-day like when you first got started?
Well, first I just want to say I hear about those toilets and that sewer pipe, and all I hear is money. That's
Money,
all
that's
I
it.
hear is
It's
just
like,
money.
that's it. Chick, chick.
Because the world's always going to need a plumber. So just remember that. Day to day, every day is different in the trade. One day you might be sweeping the floors, and the next day you might be laying out those floors. You might be laying out all the piping for that entire system. You might be bringing equipment into a building, putting air handlers on a roof. You might be unloading trucks, loading trucks, going through tools, sorting fittings, getting the coffee order. Remember, who likes their coffee with cream, who likes their coffee with sugar. It's all part of the process. You gotta remember, when you start in the trade, you're starting out down here. It doesn't matter what you did outside the trade. You could have been a brain surgeon. You're a first year apprentice now, you're going to get the coffee order, and don't mess up that guy's order, or else he's gonna make your life tough all week. So it's different every single day, and that's what I love about the trade, because you're not just sitting in front of a computer or a screen all day, or in a classroom all day. You're gonna be outside, inside, in a ditch, on a roof. It's gonna be an experience every single day, and it's going to be nerve-wracking. You're not gonna be good at it. It's gonna take 5 years for a reason. So just give yourself grace, be patient, and realize that it's hard for everybody. It doesn't matter that you're a woman. It's hard for the next guy next to you as well. And you're probably better and smarter than he is anyway.
Great. What about you, Zivin? What was your first few days like?
My first few days, pardon me, hectic. Like everybody on this stage has already said, you're going to get tested no matter where you end up, if you're in the trades or not. For me, I'm not a very large person, so I'd step onto a pile driving job, and for those, pile drivers are the interface between the ground and anything that's being built that has a deep foundation. Most pile drivers are pretty burly guys, and they're predominantly males. They have beards that are longer than I am tall. So I'd show up on the job site, and they'd be like, "What are you doing here? What are you possibly going to do?" And I'd do everything that they asked with a smile on my face. If they wanted me to jump, I'd say how high. And one day, one of my first couple of days, you had to climb to the top of the pile driving leads, which is a couple hundred feet up in the air. There wasn't a harness small enough that would fit me. This is a true story. The contractor came over to me, the owner, and this is one of the hardest contractors allegedly that we had to work for. Jokingly, he was like, "Hey, you want to climb up there tomorrow morning and grease those leads?" I was like, "Yeah, find me a harness that fits. Let's go." Sure thing. He found a harness that fit by the end of the day. The next morning, I was climbing to the top of those leads. The sun was coming up. It was a beautiful, beautiful morning. And from that time on, I never had any issues on a job site. It's like somebody asked you to do something. I think my time in the military was really helpful. You can ask me to do anything. I will always be a good soldier and follow. If it's unsafe, that's a different conversation. But I just showed up every day to work. It was apparent that I wanted to work. And I never had any issues after that. But it's if you're not nervous and you're not anxious to begin one of these careers, you're wrong. I think use that, harness that, and make yourself better. I think a few of us already up here have already said, if somebody tells you that you can't do that or they're doubting that you can do that, yeah, use that as motivation to just go out there and knock it out of the park.
Great advice. So what do you enjoy most about being in the construction field? And if there's a project that you've worked on that might illustrate what you enjoy the most, feel free to share that. So we'll go back down the row. We'll start with you, Zivin. What do you enjoy most?
I love how different every day is. Like Kim was saying, my day-to-day now in the role that I am in is different than being in the field. But regardless of what what role you might be playing at any time in your career, every day is different. So if you're one of those people that wants to get up and know that you're going to clock in and punch in at 9 a.m. and you're going to sit and do a spreadsheet for the next 8 hours and punch out at 5, this is not a good career for you. But if you like to be constantly engaged on your feet, some days are really hard. Some days are really easy. Most of them, hopefully, are going to fall in between. But I love how dynamic this industry is. Technology is always changing, believe it or not. Construction is a really dynamic place to be. So younger people coming in, if you have any aptitude or thought towards construction technology or how to use some of the up-and-coming equipment out there, man, you're going to be head and shoulders above some of people my age even for that, but certainly a bunch of people that are retiring who want nothing to do with it. It's a really great place to make a living, very dynamic, it's challenging, but that's what I love.
What about you, Kim? What do you enjoy?
I wasn't scared. I wasn't afraid. I got on the trade at 30. I knew who I was. I knew what I stood for. I knew what I wanted. I wanted to better my life. I wanted to have that dynamic career, that physical career. So when an opportunity was put in front of me, I just jumped on it. You have 5 years in the apprenticeship program, and that's your opportunity to make every single mistake. And nobody cares if you make a mistake because you're expected to make a mistake. So I was able to pick up the Trimble technology, which is the robotic transit technology. And all the guys were afraid. They didn't want to do it. They like their string layout, pulling tapes, and we have this robot and this scanner and all this stuff that you get to play with. And it's like $100,000 worth of equipment. You put it on your back and you're climbing around. And I got to just really engage with that technology and run with it. I was on the forefront of laying out projects and really leading crews from like my third year with the company, and just picked it up and ran with it. So not being afraid, not being scared, knowing that you're going to make mistakes, but being able to be daring and take those chances was really great. And I was really proud of what I did with the Trimble and passing it on and teaching other people who now have it, and they get to do it, and they get to run it, and they're, really maximizing the technology and able to cut down on the amount of physical labor that people are doing in the field. It's a really great opportunity. So if you like computers and robots and all that, think about where we are, and it's just expanded in construction.
Barbara, what about you? What kept you passionate throughout your construction career?
I'll reiterate the dynamicness of it, the learning something new every day, not having to be at the same place every day, trying out different aspects of all the electrical things that go into a building, and you get kind of proud that, I worked in that building, and I worked in that building, and you can go through New Haven and, oh yeah, I did the whatever, and you get kind of braggy about it actually. But the other thing I really enjoyed is the camaraderie. There are some negative aspects. Some older gentlemen, for the most part, didn't really want to see women in the trades, especially when I got in. And there was a whole bunch of other people who you have to kind of prove yourself. But if you know you can do it, you can't let negative attitudes bring you down. Just stick to it and learn along the way, and you end up getting the respect that you deserve anyway. And it's just fun to work with a lot of different people, rather than going into an office and seeing the same people and doing the same job. You're always doing something different, and I just enjoy working. You kind of, the hard part of being in the trades is you work yourself out of a job. Sometimes the project is a 2-year project, sometimes it's a 1, but you know that you're going to go on to something different and try something different. So I would say it's probably, I get excited about learning new things, and you always will.
So a lot of variety.
Yeah.
Keeps you passionate. What about you, Gladys? On the phone, you shared something different that you love the most about construction.
Well, there's a lot of things in laboring that I love. The guys that I work with are excellent at ONG. We all get along for one, which is a good thing to get along with your coworkers on the job. Because you got a beef with one, it's like he'll make your life miserable, try to make your life miserable if you can fend for yourself. But I just love being out there, you know, showing people, helping people out when they come to me and ask a question. Can you, you know, show me how to do this, or help them out? Because you know, a lot of these, you know, the young that are coming in, they want to. Some of the young guys want to feel that they could do it. Because they see a woman coming, they're like, "Oh, I can do it." No, you can't. Let me show you a better way. Don't act like you know. You don't know. You just got in. I got you. So I love helping out the newcomers that come in, definitely. So.
Great, all good responses. So Zivin, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the unique challenges that you faced as a female in construction?
Certainly. I alluded to this in the last question, and that's less about my gender and more about my size. I mentioned pile drivers and divers. A dive helmet, for example, weighs about 40 pounds, depending. If you have all your dive gear on, you're weighing in at about 60 pounds worth of gear, which is more than half of my body weight. So it's not for me about being male or female, boy, girl. It's about my lack of size on some of these jobs that require really burly guys sometimes. With that being said, if you need somebody to get into a very small area, that's me. I can go do work based on my size that other people just literally cannot fit into. So I think for me, that's more of the challenge. And again, that just goes to showing up every day, working hard, proving yourself, knowing that you're worth it being there. And everybody brings a skill set to the table. So what I'm great at might not be Kim's strength, but what Kim's great at certainly might not be mine. And understanding that it's okay to not be the best at everything, but be really good at the little things too. That's helpful. Show up on time, have a great handshake, maintain eye contact, be a pleasant person to be around, because as an apprentice, again, you're not expected to know a ton of things. You're here to learn. Everybody is here to learn. But if you can show up and do the small things really well consistently on a daily basis, doesn't matter how big, small, large, whatever you are, there's something out there for everybody. But for me, it's people looking at me and automatically judging me just based on my appearance.
And Barbara, in your last answer, you started to comment on possibly needing to earn the respect of some of the men that you're working with. Do you want to expand upon that a little bit and how you've overcome that in your career and earned that respect?
Sure. I mean, 23 years ago, it was a different culture than what you're going to experience now. You still might run into a real jerk. There's a whole bunch of different personalities out there, but when I began culturally, they really didn't want women in the trades. You could just tell by their attitude. And you kind of have to have some thick skin, because when I would run into somebody who was negative about women being in the trades, just consider the source, you know, and just, you earn the respect by doing the work, as you were saying, showing up on time, being pleasant. You're proving yourself a lot, especially when I first began. I had to prove that I was physically capable of doing this, that I was definitely mentally capable of doing this. And, you know, I'm not going to start crying because somebody's treating me like I'm dirt, you know. You just have to consider this is what you want to do. You're good at what you do, and you will get better as you go through your apprenticeship. And you just earn the respect that way by ignoring, I guess, not taking so much to heart what other people think of you, because you are doing what you want to do. You're doing it well. You're going to earn good money. You're going to have good insurance, and you can't let other people's opinions put you down.
Thank you, Barbara. So let's shift gears a little bit. I'd like to know a little bit about the way mentorship or support networks have been valuable to you in your career, and what advice would you give these students about finding those mentors? So Kim, let's start with you. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Barbara had kind of said it earlier with seeking out people. So in your head right now, think of somebody that you go to for advice. Doesn't have to be a woman, could be a man. It could be a teacher, it could be a family member, but kind of get that person in your head. Got them? Somebody. Everybody's got somebody, even if it's their imaginary friend. That person exists in the trade. That person is there, and the trade union training processes work because it's an apprenticeship program and people want to teach you. Now, you can be a go-getter and take that a step further and say, all right, I want to be a leader that runs projects. I want to run the robotic transit station, or I want to, lead a dive crew, or I want to run a crew on the roadway. Find that person that is a leader that you look up to and seek that person out. So that's what I did, is I sought out, it was Guy, and I sought him out. I had worked for him on a couple projects. I had actually been sent out to his job to weld. I show up with my welding bag, ready to go. I said, hey, I'm your welder. He looked at me and he said, no, you're not. See that broom? Go over there. I didn't strike an arc until the last week of that job. But the last week of that job, he said, hey, I'm running a project and I want you on my crew. All right. I said, hey, I really like the way you run projects. Will you be my mentor? I don't know what that is. What does that mean? Well, you're the person that I'm going to come to and ask questions. I want to run work. I want to be a foreman, and you're a successful foreman. So what do you think? Guys love it when they get asked for help. They have bigger egos than anybody. So once I asked him for help, he said, yeah, okay. So he was my go-to person for, hey, I want to run this line this way. What do you think? Or I'm going to set this piece of equipment this way. I'm going to rig it this way. What do you think? And eventually, he gave me opportunities to run crews, run aspects of projects, really take off with the Trimble. He listened to what I had to say about my ideas with using the Trimble technology. So it just really worked. So seeking out that person to take your education and your leadership to the next level, it's going to be on you to do that. People are going to teach you. That's how the trade works. But you have to step up and ask somebody for that next step.
Great. And Gladys, I know you had some really strong mentors in your
Yes.
life. So what would you say about advocating for yourself from the beginning and finding those mentors?
Usually the mentors, they usually see a person that's, if like myself when I started, some of the guys, they said she wants to learn. She wants it. Let's help her out. So God rest his soul, his name was Nico. He worked for a company out in Mass where I was working for. And when he taught me everything about drainage, asphalt, concrete, I think everything in laboring that we do a lot. But the main stuff outside, which I do a lot of piping work outside, asphalt and concrete, those are my main sources. And he showed me every little nit and cranny of every aspect of that. And he was my mentor. Like I said, God rest his soul, he passed away like 10 years ago, but he was the best. And he said, Gladys, you're going to get this, and you got it. He goes, girl, you got it. That's all every day he would say to me, girl, you got it, you got it. And I just took off from there.
So students, you have some built-in mentors now with your teachers, but what I'm hearing is when you're out in the field, seek out your mentor. Don't be afraid to ask for it and advocate for yourself. So let's move on. This is for Ziven and Kim. Can you share a time, maybe a particular project, where your unique perspective as a woman led to a positive outcome or contributed positively? So Ziven, let's start with you.
Sure. I'll just speak in kind of broad generalities in that we bring something different to the table. We have a different skill set. Again, my not being a huge physically imposing human being, I need to use my brain a little bit more before I'm going into a project to attack a problem, whatever that might be. So instead of just flexing and showing the brawn, which no offense to the gentleman in the room, that's typically what you guys try to do, is you want to go in there with your muscle and just muscle it into place. I'm going to take that 5, 10, 15 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever it takes, to put together a little bit of a plan in my head, know who's on my team. Again, back to who's got the skill set of X, Y, and Z. Find people that are going to be best in certain positions, and then attack a problem that way, instead of just trying to come in, arms swinging, causing destruction all along the way. Let's stop for a second. Let's pause. Let's take a beat. put something together here that's going to work, go in and always be iterating and innovating what you're doing. So if I'm going into a project and something isn't working, I'll stop here for a second. Let's reassess, regroup, and then re-attack the problem. So I think just in general, my approach to things is really different from some of the guys in the field, or even the guys that I work with now in a more of an office type setting. My approach is just very, very different. It's much more calculated, and I think in general the result speaks for itself.
Kim, what about you? Anything unique?
Yeah, so I think that women are great communicators. We have an ability that I feel like men, not that they don't have, but they don't utilize. So kind of piggybacking off of what Zippin said, is whenever I'm running a project, I always take a step back, and even if I know exactly how I'm going to, put this 20-ton piece of equipment on this slab and not kill anybody, crush anybody, drop anything down a flight of stairs, or lose a whole bunch of money and possibly a life, I'm going to ask my crew for ideas. I'm always going to take that step back and say, okay, guys, this is our task, this is our objective. How do you guys, think you want to do it? They might have an idea that I didn't even think of. They might have a safety concern that I didn't even think of. Even if they come up with some really outlandish ideas, it makes them feel a lot better that you're asking for their input. When I see other guys running crews, they're not doing that. They're just saying, all right, this is what we're going to do, let's go. And the guys on the crew might take a step back, be like, oh, he's not doing this right, or I would do this different. You avoid all of that by checking your ego at the side and getting their input. Because you have to remember, a lot of these people that you're going to be working with have 30, 40 years in the trade. They know more things than you can even think of. So taking that input, being able to ask people for their opinions has really, really helped me a lot throughout my career.
Excellent, great advice, which applies to any field, really. All right, so we're going to wrap up with our last question. Gladys, I'll start with you, and we'll go down the line. So these students are preparing for their career in construction, some really soon, right? We have some seniors in the room. So what advice would you give to these female students about what next steps they can take to prepare for their career, to get ready?
Okay, yeah, next steps would be think about what you want to do as in a trade, which kind of trade you want, carpentry, electrical, well, all these young ladies right here. I'm going to say go to laboring. It's the best. You're outside doing what you got to do. Winter's kind of summertime, spring are the best. But think about what you want to do first. You know what I mean? You guys come to laboring, I'm out there. Come to ONG Industries, I'm definitely there. So if you want to work with me, let me know, and we can take it from there.
So more self-reflection. We've come full circle with this conversation.
Yes.
Think about what you want to do, and talk to Gladys if you're interested in being a laborer.
Absolutely.
She's very excited to speak to anyone afterwards.
Yes.
Barbara, what about you? What's the one piece of advice you would give these students?
I would say determine what you really want to do, how far you want to go with your career. I know they don't want us to pitch unions, but you might decide that a union is a better option for you. But then you have to realize and research what that entails. You're going to have a 5-year apprenticeship if you go union. You're going to have an apprenticeship if you don't go union, but you get the benefits of hands-on. You get decent pay while you're working your way up, and you really need to decide and research beforehand exactly what that career is going to entail and the demands that it's going to put on your schedule. And I'm not trying to scare you off at all. I think it's wonderful. It's nice to, on-the-job learning is great. It's difficult to learn on the job and go to school at night, but the 5-year period goes by a lot quicker than you think. And by the time you're done with it, you deserve to be a journey person. You deserve what you decided to go through. But my best advice would be, research, and just have a focus, have a goal.
Great advice. Research. Know your options. What about you, Kim? What's your bit of advice?
I was going to say join a union, but other than that, you know, some of you guys aren't even 18 yet. You're 15, 16, 17. What you want right now might be different than what you want when you're 25. But at your core, you know what makes you really happy. You know when you're happiest. You know if you like being outside and you don't care if it's cold, you don't care if it's hot, or you get sweaty, then hey, maybe being laborer is for you. If you like technology, if you like electricity, if you like getting electrocuted, maybe being an electrician is for you. Really do that self-reflection. Really think about it, because no matter how old you are, I mean, we all run the gamut in ages and experiences up here, but we're all saying the same thing. Whatever makes you happy today is going to make you happy 20 years from now. So why not make money while you're doing it and earn a good living?
Fantastic advice. All right. You're last.
All right, I would encourage everyone in this room to get out of their comfort zone and not be afraid to make a mistake. There are so many things that you can do out here. Take a calculated risk out there. Do your research. Try to get as much information as you possibly can, but be really open and honest in the fact that everything is scary. It should be scary out there. Take a risk and get out there. Get out of your comfort zone, because otherwise, once you bust through that wall of your comfort zone, you're like, wow, I had no idea I could actually really do that. And then you just keep upping the bar for yourself. And eventually you're going to find yourself 10, 15 years from now reflecting on 10, 15 years ago, and you're going to be shocked at where you got. But you have to try things that are hard. You have to be able to get through adversity. Not everything is going to work the way that you want it to. I've certainly failed in plenty of my endeavors. The ones I've been successful in have been really, really great and really fulfilling for me. So it doesn't keep me in bed all day if I fail at something. It's motivation to get out of bed and remind myself that not everything is easy, but when you reach that goal that you're looking for and you had to get through some adversity to achieve that goal, holy smokes, the reward is second to none. And 30 years from now, yeah, you'll retire with a nice retirement, and look back on a career of really hard work and building some seriously cool stuff.
I love that. Discomfort is where we all grow.
100%.
For sure. Well, this was fantastic. Your experiences, thank you so much for sharing the insights, the advice, wonderful. We do have a little bit of time left, so I'd like to open it up. Do any of our students have questions for any of our panelists or any of our teaching staff that's hiding on the side here?
I'll say, contrary to belief, not all men are intimidated by women. Good job.
That's right. That is true.
Great. No questions for our panelists? I know it can be. All right. Say it out loud.
Was there ever a situation where you felt like it wasn't safe?
That's a great question. So let me repeat it. Was there ever a situation that you felt that it was unsafe, but that you had to do it anyway? That's a great question.
My first job was at Sound School in New Haven. Wanted to prove myself, and I was asked to, it was towards the end of the day, was a very tall stairwell with a extension ladder, and a splice needed to be made up in a lighting fixture. The foreman had gone up there and tried to do the splice, and he got like wiggy, he was shaking. He didn't like the height. So they're like, okay, get the apprentice to do it. And it was a first year apprentice, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna prove myself. And it was stupid that I did, because I went up that ladder, which you'll learn all the, safety is really a big concern in any trade. So I knew the ladder was too upright. There's a 4 foot, for every foot you go up, you want 4 feet out. This wasn't. This was almost straight up and down. And I was splicing like this, not really being able to see what I was doing. And I did the splice, and I was, I heard the guys, oh, she's a keeper, but I would not do that today. I wouldn't have done that, the last job I was at, I would have taken that safety and said, what are you, out of your mind? you know? So, yeah, don't let anybody tell you to do something. And if you join a union, I think even non-union, if you're on a larger project, you usually have what they call toolbox talks that go over some kind of safety, and you'll hear it till you want to barf. But you really have to be able to say, no, that's not. Bring up your concern. Don't be afraid to speak about it. But yeah, that was dumb of me. You know, it was dumb. So.
Did any of our other panelists have an answer to that they'd like to share?
I can share one. Yeah, so I was welding a joint on top of an air handler in a hospital, and it was a shutdown. So you have a certain amount of time, and you're going to work until you can get that system back up running again. So it's a hospital, so you have patients up there in those rooms, and they had to move patients from one area to another, and then we had to get the cooling back on. And it was in a tight spot. It was very dark, and it was like 12-inch pipe, and we had to bring it in. The fit up was really, really bad. If you know anything about welding, you want to keep your gap really small. And I was a 4th-year apprentice. I was welding on the job, and I had like a 2nd-year apprentice, and I was trying to get him to dog the joint in, bring the joint in, bring the joint in, bring the joint in. It was a bad cut, bad joint, and the bottom of the joint was like 1.5 inches gap. And I had to be directly underneath that joint. And the kid wouldn't dog it in anymore. He wouldn't bring it in tight, and he just left. And I'm by myself, and I'm under the gun. I have to get this thing done. And so I couldn't really move around. Another one of those spots where none of the guys could fit up there. I had to get up there. You couldn't move around. And so I'm just boogering rod in this joint, just trying to fill it up and clean it so I can close it up and we can get this shutdown finished. And I just had globs of metal falling on me. And I was trying to move the fire blanket, trying to put my PPE over me, but I mean, I just had it dropping everywhere, and it was just finding skin no matter what. And my partner left; he didn't want to hear it. That was it, and I just had to get it done. And looking back on it, I would never have done that again. I would have timed out. I don't care about the shutdown. I would have gotten another fitter up there that listened to me, to put another dog on that, so I could have work that joint better and not have the scars to show for it. Yeah.
Good stories. So listen to your gut.
Yeah.
Be safe. Any other questions from our students? Go ahead. So what motivates you?
What motivates me is seeing young people like you interested in the trades and then watching your lives transform over the course of a 4-year apprenticeship. I have young women that come into the program as a 1st-year apprentice who are so timid and shy and nervous, and 4 years later they are graduating, running crews, have really intelligent, thoughtful things to say, and are earning an incredible living along the way. I didn't have a bad life before I joined the trades, but my time in the trades elevated me to a level that I didn't even know I could reach. And being able to share that and pass that on to young people coming through the trade system is incredibly motivating to me.
Any other panelists want to respond to that? What keeps you motivated?
Well, at first, it was money. But as I got into it, and I realized it was a challenging and rewarding, a sense of, I guess I'm going to say it's ego and pride a little bit, that, yes, I am part of this. I am part of something important. And it is great to see more women getting into the trade and not being afraid. And I've seen a lot of young women who are your size, and they just go at it. They're motivated because they're learning something new. They're doing something with their hands. They're not doing repetitive actions constantly. So I think just the fact that you have so many different aspects of your day-to-day job, that kind of keeps it exciting. It keeps you motivated.
And I like what you said earlier, Barbara, about you get to brag a little bit. How cool is it to drive around and be able to say, I worked on that, I built that. That's motivating. Any other questions? go ahead. Have you ever regretted going into the trade you picked?
Not
No,
one
No,
bit.
not
not at
one
all. Not one day, yeah, totally
No.
agree.
No, there's a couple days.
day.
But
Just a few, just a
few.
handful.
But no,
Yeah.
I wouldn't choose any other trade.
Yeah.
It worked for me. It worked for me.
When-
I got hit by lightning when I was at working at a nursery.
I told you electrocuted.
I told
said- on the record.
And I said, well, it didn't kill me, so I can do this.
When it's cold, you're outside and it's cold and you're in a building in New Haven and it's a 20-story building and there's no windows in and it just snowed and it's ice and you're so cold, your feet are cold and the guy that you're working with is grumpy and he's telling you to go run around and get all this stuff and you're just like, oh, what did I do? But then that guy teaches you something and he passes something on to you and you go on to your next job and you're able to do it and fix it or install it or teach somebody else. It makes any bad day worth it. And I go home and I own my home and I have a car and I have insurance and I get to talk to you guys and I get to meet these women. It's like the best thing I probably ever did in my life. Definitely.
So I think we might have time for one more question. Oh, go ahead.
Were there ever times where you felt overwhelmed being the only woman in your trade?
So any times you felt overwhelmed being the only woman in your trade?
Myself personally, not necessarily. Again, ever since I was a little bitty kid, as I always had a shaved head. I only started wearing a shirt when I was a kid when I was like 8 or 9 years old. I was always a tomboy. I'm truthfully, no offense to the young women in this room, but I prefer to work around men. I think for me, I'm good. Yeah.
No, because I know that I'm not the only one, right? And even if I'm the only woman on the crew or on a big job, I might see an electrician or a laborer or a carpenter, and I'll go up to that woman. I'll say, "Hey, sister, how's it going?" Because it doesn't matter what you look like, where you're from. We're all sisters in the trade, and that is one of the most important things. Like we could all come together. And there's an organization called CTECS Women Build Nations. It has this huge conference that we get to go to, and it sends it to us. And there's women that are some of the first in their locals to get a license in the state. I met the first plumber in the state of California, the first female plumber in the state of California. That's the first.
Cool.
I mean, and then to see, right, how it goes. So no, it's just super motivating. And you're not the only one. Even if you think you are, you're not.
I think that might be a perfect place to end. So we cannot thank you enough for being here, taking time out of your busy schedules. Students, thank you for your participation and your attention. So let's just give our panelists a round of applause.